Hello everybody, welcome back to the realm. I'm the Goat King, and this will be the final episode of our Legend of Zelda themed dungeon for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. We finally get into the boss fight now that the players have collected the boss key and they've cleared the rest of the dungeon. As they go back to the main chamber and once again move the staircase, but this time to match the door it was originally positioned at. Clockwork door. And now that they have their clockwork gear, they can mesh it into the door and turn the crank. As the door opens, the first room they come into here ought to be an antechamber. In a lot of dungeon games, you'll find these antechambers with healing potions and stuff. They're a formal way of telling the players you're about to enter a boss fight and you might want to be prepared. But we want it to be believable, so in this case we're going to have a long dead corpse, some thief who at some point attempted to get in and out of the treasury, and they lay there now with couple pocketfuls of coin, as well as some consumable resources, being healing potions and the like. And it is clear that they are too decayed to rise up. There's a skeleton, there's no magic on them, they're not carrying any magic items. This antechamber gives a good place for the players to take a long rest, if they choose to. They have been through many fights in this dungeon, and I might even, if I was talking to my players, I'm like, hey, this chamber, it does look like you could barricade it fairly easy. This might be a good place to take a long rest if you so chose. Advertise that to them. A lot of dungeon masters don't like when the players take long rests inside the dungeon for understandable reasons. But in this case, they've cleared the rest of the dungeon and they're just before the boss fight. So it makes sense to go ahead and let them take a rest. Also, this is going to be a very tough fight. Should they choose or choose not to take a long rest, either way, their next steps will take them into the Treasury chamber itself. And let me go ahead and work on the design for the room. Here we have the main chamber the fight will take place in. We have several side chambers. They're open, and these are shelves of treasure, gold. This is the treasure hall, after all, of the treasury. This is the bank vault, as it were. In the center of the room lies a dormant clockwork dragon. It doesn't appear to be wound. It doesn't seem to react to anything. It does seem to have webbing across the surface in various pieces, as well as there is web strands all around the room, across the ceiling, to various points and corners especially. There's a lot of sticky silk everywhere. If a single thread is disturbed, the boss fight will commence, and from within the clockwork dragon, a gargantuan spider will crawl out. We've seen previously in this dungeon areas that were taken over by spiders. This is our big example of that. Clockwork dragon that wound down to nothing, lay dormant, and in its place a new predator made its home. The Goliath spider is a CR 11. That is two levels higher than the party. This should be a very difficult fight, especially compared to everything else they've done in this dungeon. Everything else in this dungeon was mostly a trivial encounter. Being a severe threat boss, that makes this encounter moderate. It's 2 levels higher than most of the encounters. And personally, having TPK'd a one-shot before, I would never go higher than a severe or extreme threat boss. So I would never go higher than a severe encounter. That was a bloody mess. Personally, at least with my players, I know that wouldn't really work out with them. However, this is a moderate encounter. It's going to be much more difficult than everything else they've encountered. They might even be a little cocky. This is why it was important that they get that rest in, and if not, at least put in a little bit of time doing the medicine skill, because this is an insane fight. Let's get into it. The Goliath spider is an insane fight. Let's get into it. The Goliath spider can be found on page 307 of the first bestiary book. It is a gargantuan, so it takes up a 20 by 20 space. I'm going to allow it to move through the Clockwork Dragon space freely, as when it climbed out, the Clockwork Dragon collapsed, but this is still a hindrance to player movement. The pieces are just too big for them to move around with anything like efficiency. You might let them move through it like difficult terrain. The Goliath spider has a perception of 22, dark vision, and web sense. Web sense is listed under the spider swarm on page 306 of the bestiary, as the spider swarm has imprecise tremor sense to detect the vibrations of creatures touching its web. Its skills are an 18 in acrobatics, a 23 in athletics, and a 22 in stealth. Its strength is a plus 8, dex plus 5, con plus 7, intelligence minus 5, whiz plus 3, and charisma minus 4. Armor class of 30, with a fortitude plus 25, reflex plus 21, and will plus 17, with 220 HP. It has the Summon Upon Prey reaction, which is listed under Hunting Spider on page 306 of the bestiary. Summon Upon Prey is a reaction with the requirement that initiative has not yet been rolled. It notices the creature and strides, climbs, or descends on a web before it rolls initiative. The Goliath spider has a speed of 45 feet and a climb speed of 30 feet. Its ground speed, its land speed, is nearly double what most players have, and its climb speed is greater than what most players have for their land speed. This thing is fast. This spider is swift. It has a melee attack with its fangs, plus 24, reach of 10 feet, with 2d12 plus 12 piercing damage, plus Goliath Spider Venom. I'll explain Goliath Spider Venom in a moment. It is a ranged attack of web, plus 22, range increment of 60 feet, and the effect of web tether. I'll also explain that in just a moment. The Goliath Spider has the descend on a web move action, which is listed as per the hunting spider, with a few modifiers. The hunting spider, listed on page 306 of the bestiary, describes descend on a web as move action, and the hunting spider moves straight down up to 40 feet, suspended by a web line. It can hang from the web or drop off. The distance it descends on a web does not count for falling damage. A creature that successfully strikes the web, armor class 20, hardness 3, and 5 HP, severs it, causing the spider to fall. The Goliath Spider modifies this with a couple of important details. It can descend 120 feet, and the web has an armor class of 20, hardness of 5, and 20 HP. And we get into Goliath Spider Venom. This is an incapacitation poison effect. Incapacitation meaning its effect on creatures higher than its level is severely lessened. So that will not really matter in a situation where the players are all lower level. It is a poison, so if any of your players have a resistance to poison or a weakness to poison, this will be a particularly important thing to note. There's a DC 30 Fortitude saving throw and a maximum duration on this for 6 rounds. Stage 1 is 2d6 poison and slowed 1 for 1 round. Stage 2 is 2d6 poison and slowed 2 for 1 round. And stage 3 is paralyzed for 2d4 hours. So the way this works is with this poison is anytime a player gets bit by the spider, it needs to roll that Fortitude DC 30 check. Unless it has already failed a Fortitude save against this poison. So for the next 6 rounds, on the player's turn, you'll go through the stage. So starting at stage 1, they'll take 2d6 poison damage and be slowed 1. They'll roll another DC 30 Fortitude save. If they fail the save, on the next round they enter stage 2. If they succeed the save, they go back 1 stage. So from first stage, going down a stage means they're cured. If they critically succeed, they go back 2. If they critically fail, they go forward 2 stages. So every round, they're going to deal with the stage they're on and then roll a save to see if they will get better or progress down the track. If they reach stage 3, they are paralyzed for 2d4 hours. Now, the poison only lasts for 6 rounds. So, after the 6th round, the poison goes away. They don't have to roll Fortitude saves anymore, but they will still be poisoned for the remainder of the duration from that 2d4 hours if they reach stage 3. This can be really, really debilitating. Imagine your frontline fighters getting this, rolling poorly, and becoming paralyzed. And now it's up to the casters and ranged characters to finish fighting off the spider before it can kill their friends. Or kill them. That's tough. That's rough. Next, we talk about the last ability of the Goliath Spider, which is applied on their ranged attack, and this is Web Tether. A creature hit by the spider's web strike is restrained and tethered to the spider, preventing it from moving further away from the spider. The spider can have one creature tethered at a time. The DC to escape or force open the web is 30. The tether can be severed with a strike, armor class 20, hardness 5, and 20 HP, but this does not free the restrained creature. When you are restrained, you are tied up and can barely move. A creature has you pinned. You have the flat-footed and immobilized conditions. You cannot use any actions with the attack or manipulate trait except to attempt to escape or force open your bonds. Restrained overrides grabbed. So you are flat-footed and immobilized. When you're flat-footed, you simply take a -2 circumstance penalty to your armor class. When immobilized, you can't use any action with the move trait. When immobilized by something holding you in place, an external force would move you out of your place. The force must succeed a check against either the DC of the effect holding you or the relevant defense, usually Fortitude DC of the monster holding you in place. If you're caught in the web tether, you are tethered, so you cannot move further from the creature. You are restrained, which means you are flat-footed and immobilized. It also means you cannot use attack or manipulate actions that aren't to try and escape or force open the thing that's got you restrained. Flat-footed, you take a -2 circumstance bonus to your armor class, and immobilized, you can't use move actions. So if you get hit by web tether, you are standing in place, you cannot move, you cannot attack, you can't pull items out of your pockets, and your armor class is reduced by 2 with a circumstance penalty. You can attempt to escape, the DC 30 to escape. This will be a very tough fight. And it should be a lot of fun, especially for the Game Master, who up till now has seen a lot of their monsters die very quickly and very easily. For the players, this will likely be a very jarring reality check, just how tough these situations can be, even for heroes. I hope you have fun playing this dungeon, running it for your players, or just taking it as inspiration for making your own dungeons. I hope you had fun watching my first series of videos. I'll be back next week to begin a new series. I think I'm going to talk about Starfinder. Maybe do some review of the classes. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for experiencing the realm. We'll see you next week.